In 2008, it was a devastating time for the automotive industry, and because most of our business is in auto, we felt it firsthand. We had a really tough couple years retrenching, frankly, back into the Canadian market, and at that time, that's when we met TD. TD really took the time to understand the business conditions, the changing environment, and really helped us to refocus on the opportunity as opposed to looking at the challenges of the past. I think TD is a leader in helping entrepreneurs in this country. And I think Quantum Shift is a leader in helping educate entrepreneurs. Quantum Shift was my first experience with business networks and business education. It has really helped me to continue my growth as a business professional. Today, we're looking at a sizable acquisition. TD responded very quickly with a broad range of resources to really help not only give us great ideas, they've been proactive, and I think they've been a key part of giving us confidence to continue to go down this road. I'm Michael Robinson, CEO of Robinson Solutions. We provide industrial services to automotive manufacturers across North America.
Partnership is TD Commercial Banking. Welcome to today's June 16 Niagara Business Leadership webinar with our distinguished guest, the leader of Employees Acquisition Party, and the field leader is Andrea Horwath. Thank you so very much for being with us today. My pleasure. And to you, our participants, thank you very much for joining us on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock in this beautiful area that we are in Niagara. My name is Mishka Bolton, and I will be your moderator for the next hour. Let us acknowledge that the land of the Chicago is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and Indigenous people, both in shaping and strengthening this region in particular, our province, and our country as a whole. Please know that these words are not spoken lightly. As a Chamber of Commerce, we are in the process of defining how we can best support truth and reconciliation. We are listening, we are learning, and are deeply committed to doing things differently moving forward. Please stay posted what is coming forward in the upcoming weeks. And now turning to today. It is important for us to come together for conversations that collectively shape our vision. What does a successful recovery look like? How is our provincial government balancing economic, social, and healthcare concerns? And what is the role of the private sector to ensure future resilience? Dialogues such as this one is only made possible because of partnerships that support them. And it is my pleasure to be joined by Scott Galbraith, District Vice President of TD Commercial Banking, to introduce our special guest. I'm Anna Hood. Here's a message from Scott with TD Commercial Banking.
Thanks to Mishka and everyone at the Niagara Chamber for their continued opportunity to introduce esteemed members of our community through the Niagara Business Leadership Series. TD is proud of our association with the Chamber, given the central role it plays in coordinating economic activity in the Niagara Peninsula. My name is Scott Galbraith, and I'm happy to serve as Vice President and leader of TD's business banking group in the region. We are based out of the TD building in downtown St. Catharines and have a team of 12 bankers there specifically dedicated to Niagara. It is this localized approach that we believe makes the difference in serving communities as entrepreneurs manage the ups and downs of their industries. It's been a different and challenging year for many in the business world, particularly here in Niagara, where we're so dependent on hospitality and other industries, and we are proud of how TD has navigated the pandemic. Through the TD Community Resilience Initiative, we have committed $25 million Canadian toward helping some of the most impacted communities respond to COVID-19 and build resilience into the future. As part of this program, 10 million Canadian was allocated to the TD Ready Challenge to address the impacts of the pandemic and support recovery. Thanks again for the chance to participate in today's event. While the staff have done a great job making these virtual events happen, here's to hoping we're getting close to the end of this line. I look forward to seeing some of you for real in person around the region soon and in these events to come in the future. And now I'd like to introduce our guest for today's presentation, Andrea Horwath. Andrea Horwath is the leader of the official opposition New Democrats. From her early career in community development to today, she's always believed that government should be about giving people the opportunity to build a good life, no matter where in Ontario they live or when this province became home. Born and raised in Hamilton, Andrea was elected to Hamilton City Council in 1997, then as the MPP for Hamilton Centre in 2004. In 2018, Andrea led her party to become the official opposition, the largest official opposition in a generation. Today, half the members of her MPP team represent ridings from every region in the province, and together they're reflective of the diversity of Ontario. She's a leader who believes in proposing positive solutions, especially when it comes to ending hallway medicine, giving seniors better care, and supporting public schools so they can give kids a great start. She's fighting for good jobs and a more affordable life. She's an Ontarian, a mom, a Hamiltonian, and she's running for Premier in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrea Horwath.
Thank you very much, Scott. And thank you very much also to Lundy Manor Wine Cellars, here located in Niagara Falls, one of Niagara Falls' first state wineries, and for hosting us today. If you want more information on the winery, please check out lundymanor.ca, and it gives you all the information that you need. They're open to welcome guests on Saturday and Sunday. And before we get started with some questions, let me also bring to your attention two buttons on your Zoom screen that are there. One of them is called the chat function. Most of you are aware of it, but if you would like to ask a question, please utilize that function. And if you wish to enable live transcript, the bottom of the Zoom screen, you will find a button for that as well. And in case you are running into any technical challenges, please utilize the chat function again. We have a great team of people here with us that are going to answer any questions that you have. And on that note, based on the feedback that you have given us, we have this great privilege of actually meeting up with Andrea today and look at questions and concerns about housing, specific sectors such as tourism, food services, alcoholic beverages, the labor shortages, the vaccination status overall, childcare and infrastructure. These are some of the key issues that you have brought forward, and we're privileged to actually spend the next hour here with Andrea on those very important topics. And on that note, let me ask you first, you're in Niagara today. So what has your day been like so far, and what is on the agenda for today?
Well, thanks, first of all, Mishka, and the Chamber for inviting me to have this conversation. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for the introduction as well. I wanted to share that I've been here since about, I think, 11 o'clock this morning. Started with a press conference in Port Colborne, or rather in St. Catharines, to talk about housing, about affordable housing, about how can we help our young people in the Niagara region to stay here, to be able to afford to raise their families here, buy homes here, and stay here to to live in the communities that raised them, and that gave them a start in life, because we know it's becoming more and more unaffordable, and young people are losing hope. So that was what our press conference was about this morning. I then spent some time in Port Colborne with Port Cares, which is an amazing organization that provides all kinds of supports for folks, on every kind of level, if you will, from children to seniors, and in every income level, apparently, as well. Very inspired by their passion and their dedication and commitment to the many communities that they serve, because they have a presence or space in a lot of different places. And now I'm here. After this, I'll be heading to Thorold, I think, for a little bit of a social and first dinner and the social with some of our party members. And it's, I have to say, I always love coming to Niagara. I grew up in Stony Creek, as people may know, which I always felt was right next door to the Niagara region. And it's a gorgeous day, and it's been very inspirational thus far. And I'm sure this next chat will be just as inspirational as everything else I've done today.
Thank you so very much, actually. And I think with the comments that you made, your opening remarks, actually, it leads perfectly into one of the questions that we've gotten from participants, from a number of participants, actually, via email, knowing that you would be with us actually today. And it's related to the overall housing market. And you touched on two particular things. One of them, how difficult it is for young people to enter the market and to be able to afford a house. And then the second part is also looking at the rental situation that we're facing. We have less rental stock. The rents have significantly increased. We're looking at the population forecast for Niagara. In some areas, we're looking it's in the next 20 years to increase it between 160 to 180,000 in a population which is currently based of around 460,000 population, which is a significant increase that we have. And we predominantly have a significant number of people actually employed in areas that are probably more vulnerable, service sectors and sales occupations and other areas like this. So the question that has come forward from participants is, what role can the provincial government play in relieving this problem? How would the NDP government actually solve this issue?
Well, Mishka, you're correct on all of those fronts. It's really challenging, and it's heartbreaking to have young people say to me, and this happens often, unfortunately, here, but also in other parts of the province, that they're delaying decisions like starting a family or expanding their family because they simply can't afford, the purchase price or even the rental price of accommodations that will meet their growing needs, and that is a very, very serious problem that we have. So we actually have taken a hard look at this. And I think there's a continuum of solutions that we really need to take seriously. I did announce this morning one of the specific plans that we have in our housing platform that helps young people to buy their first home. So what we've put forward is a plan to give young people or first-time homeowners is probably the better way to say it, an opportunity to obtain about 10% of the value of the home that they're purchasing as a equity loan that the province will provide. What that does is it helps them to come up with that down payment as the prices continue to ratchet up. And so what we're hoping is that we can form government and bring this plan into place and provide that hope for folks and that help for young people and first-time homeowners particularly. The loan, I call it a shared equity loan because it's not needing to be repaid until they sell the house or they move or at any other time that they wish to pay off that loan. So it doesn't create any kind of extra ongoing financial burden. So there's no interest, that's accruing or anything like that. But it is a bit of an assistance to help folks to see the way forward on home ownership. Having said that, we know that there's a huge spectrum of need. Otherwise, there's just average rental housing. I was saying to you a minute ago, I was talking to Port Cares earlier today. They were saying the average one-bedroom rental is $1,650 for a one-bedroom rental in Port Colborne. That's really worrisome. There was also the identification of, and which you raised as well, is that the economy has taken a hit. People have had a difficult time, particularly in the tourism industry and the service industry, in terms of maintaining employment. And we have to be thoughtful about that. So we've also got some plans around traditional affordable housing for folks who are really having a difficulty financially. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reduce non-resident speculation. So we're going to put some things in place to try to cool that off. We also think it's important to acknowledge that billionaires and huge corporations coming in to buy up property is troublesome because it leaves very little left for everybody else to try to fight for. And with those numbers of population growth that you're talking about, I think we have to take seriously the notion that we need to ensure housing is available for everyday folks to be able to to set down some roots and grow their families. and grow their businesses really in these communities here in Niagara and across the province. The platform plank, I could go on forever on the housing platform plank. Housing is, I believe housing is such an important thing for people. You really can't achieve much else in life if you haven't got a place where you're settled, where you have a roof over your head that meets your needs, where you don't have to, worry about the affordability. And that way you have the opportunity then to build up other parts of your life, solve other problems you may have, begin your family and those kinds of things. And so it is really an important piece. And I can certainly provide you with a link to our platform piece and the members of the chamber as well, because it's quite comprehensive. There are going to be things in there, I think, that people think are great ideas, maybe some that you're not going to like so much, but I think it's a blending of all of these things that will help us to move forward on the housing front. It's just really time that we start tackling this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we hear the same actually from employers at the same time too, because if we're looking at Niagara and we're actually forecasting a population growth that we have, that also means more jobs and more opportunities that are there. But people would not come to Niagara if they can't find housing. You need to some degree still find housing for you and your family. And that is going to be a critical part of it. So we do appreciate that. And it has also been, it is among the top 3 to 4 issues in Niagara. The Niagara employers have identified at the same time. So it's good to see.
And the chambers as well. I mean, the chambers as well talked about the missing middle, so that the townhouses, the duplexes, those kinds of units that will also help with providing opportunity for people to find a home.
It was interesting because we looked at the statistic and looked at Ontario-wide, and it indicated that only in the past 20 years, only 7% of everything that has been built was actually rental units too. So for even people to try out another community where you might not make the initial commitment of purchasing it, you need to have the other opportunities that are there. So I appreciate your input and your party's take on this one. We are finding ourselves today at a beautiful winery in Niagara Falls, and Niagara has many of them. So I actually thought maybe it's a good time to take a little bit of a look at that sector, the impact of that sector. We are in Niagara, we have at the GNCC and throughout actually our Ontario Chamber network have actively actually advocated to see the demolition of the interprovincial trade barriers, especially in the beverage alcohol industry in that sector that's there, just to make it easier for us to trade with our neighboring provinces alone that we have. The government of Canada has opened the door for the provinces to move forward. How would you address this issue?
Oh, I really do believe that that there's such an abundance of not only in the beverage alcohol sector, but many others as well, of product, of opportunity. And so making sure that we are able to support these Canadian businesses is really important. So should we have the honor of forming government next year, we would certainly be working with organizations like yourselves and others across the country to make sure that we are providing Canadians with an ability to to try all of the wonderful products that are being produced from one coast to the other, and we know, or from one coast to the other, I guess is the way to say it. But we know that it's I think there is some desire from consumers as well. I mean, a lot of these kinds of things are driven by consumer demand, which is positive. And I think that as we come out of COVID, particularly, we need to start looking at how do we, support our businesses nationwide and create opportunities. So that's something that certainly we're prepared to do some work on to realize that opportunity.
And there's a question that has come forward from a couple of people who are owning wineries. And one of the things that they've identified is saying that it's almost not clear because it seems so common sense when you and I are sitting here and we have this conversation and we say, yes, that should be feasible. We're only a population of 38 million in Canada. And sometimes winery owners say, we don't really understand what the holdup of it is. What does it take to see that political will to move forward. And I think one of the areas that we're looking at, that during the pandemic, often we have seen a tremendous political will to make decisions faster, quicker, because of the need being there. Is the political will there to support it? Is this something that can move forward quite swiftly, or are there other barriers that maybe the industry doesn't see that is holding up this decision making?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the current government's kind of decision-making process is on this particular issue, but you raise a good point. Where there's a will, there's a way. Is that right? And so the I think the thing that happens to, I would imagine, hopefully I'll find out myself next year. What I'm sure happens is there's competing priorities for the government's attention. And of course, again, as you identified, Mishka, this particular point in time has been focused on COVID, and rightfully so. However, if we're serious about growing our own businesses and helping them to expand and to to market their products across the country, which I think Canadians are proud of our businesses around the country, right? I think we're very, even though we're small, we're mighty, and we're proud as a nation. And I think that that it's something that I don't think it would take a lot of work to make happen. It does take, though, focus. And I sometimes wonder, why there hasn't been focus on this particular piece.
Seems like the timing's still right, because we focus more on shop local. We're becoming more proud of what we are making in our backyard. We're becoming more self-sustaining, or focus on areas where we are really looking at that part of it. It just seems, yeah, maybe the time is right, and maybe the will is there at this point too. Let me shift a little bit away from alcoholic beverages into the tourism industry. They're closely linked, but as we know, the pandemic has been extremely hard on the tourism sector and the food services that has been there, and it's likely will be the one that will take the longest to recover at the same time. Pre-pandemic, in Niagara, we had about 25,000, just under 30,000 people out of our workforce of about 210,000, depending on the job in that area of it, in that sector. What would the NDP government do to assist the economic recovery of tourism specifically?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that we've already tried to get the government to do. We were urging them to put in place a tourism tax credit to encourage people to get back out into the attractions, into the major centers like Niagara Falls, for example. Encourage people to get back out and frequent these kinds of businesses with a tax credit that was basically $1,000, dollar for dollar. So you don't have to spend $5,000 to get $1,000 in credit. It was a dollar for dollar plan. This is something Wayne Gates actually brought to the table after listening to presentations from business folks in the tourist industry during the finance committee hearings. And this is something that hasn't been done. But I think there's other pieces as well that we have to be really thoughtful about. Right now, it's pretty much every business for themselves in terms of what the protocols are around vaccines and welcoming guests back and customers and clients, and to find it's a bit of a scramble and it's a bit chaotic. And so really, I think that doesn't help the tourist either, in terms of knowing what they're headed for, or what they're going to find when they when they come to Niagara on the Lake, for example. And so what I think needs to happen is there needs to be some clarity there. There needs to be a framework so that everybody understands, and that businesses aren't left to their own devices to try to figure it out. Because not only does it help the businesses, but as I mentioned, it also helps the customer, right? And it creates a sense of confidence with the tourists that they know. They know what they're going to find, and they know how they fit in terms of the protocols that are in place, and they won't have any disappointments along the way. And so I think that will go a long way to help get people back out, because I think there's still some fear out there. And of course, we're hearing about the Delta variant and the possibility of a fourth wave, and I think that deters people from from getting back out into community. So I think there's a lot of pieces. Now, on the other side, in terms of the longer run, the tourism industry, let me step back a minute. We were trying to get the government to bring forward a third tranche or a third, plan or a third portion of their business support grants. Why? Because things are opening gradually and things are coming back online slowly, and a lot of businesses have gathered up a lot of payables over these last 18 months or so, and it's not like turning on a tap or turning off a tap, as all of you know better than I do. But certainly, we thought it was important for the government to to be there for a third grant. We know that tourism was not included the first round. Certainly, the second round they were, but I think it was a missed opportunity to provide a third round that we can. I mean, I think we can still continue to encourage the government to do that. But I think one of the things that is going to help in the long run is to make sure in the short run we do everything we can to keep folks and businesses alive. And I think that is the challenge that we have right now. I'm concerned. I hear from folks that there's expectations that some more businesses are going to be in trouble, as we end this year and head into the next year. And that, to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. We often talk about small business, particularly being the backbone of our economy, and being a huge employer, which you identified a few moments ago in terms of the impact here in the Greater Niagara area. Why would we not be doing everything we can to keep that backbone strong and to support it as we get through these next couple of months? Because what that will do is help us with the recovery. It will help us to bounce back if we have more of the businesses that have been able to get through to the end of COVID and survive it. And that creates, of course, not only employment opportunity, but it also helps with what's happening in some of the downtowns, right? And some of the main streets. It's really sad to see what's happened in some of the main streets in our communities. Those main streets, those mom and pop shops, those tourist attractions are places where you get the vibrancy of your community. They're what defines our towns and cities, right? And to not support the businesses that do so much to animate our communities is really, really troubling. If I can say one last thing, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on this one topic, but it's been heartbreaking to hear business people tell me about how they've had to lay off or completely end employment relationships with people that have worked for them, for 20, 25 years, family members, people who are considered family members because they worked with these businesses for such a long time with these business owners and companies. That's heartbreaking. And to know that some business owners were, they couldn't make it. And that wasn't just the loss then of their business. It was in many cases, the loss of their homes. People stretched themselves so thin to try to make it through. And for those who didn't, my heart just breaks because it's not just a business. I mean, it's your entire life. It's your dreams that are lost. And that's, I think we have to really be thoughtful about that and realize that everything we can do to prevent that from happening is what we should be doing.
I appreciate when you say this too, because I think when we talk about businesses, we actually talk about people. And I think sometimes people forget that when we just look at the numbers of it and see it as being businesses that are there. It's actually people's and people's lives, it's families, it's kids that are impacted by it, and it looks significantly differently. I want to bring up one thing, and I think you said this a couple of minutes ago, and you talked about the confidence that people have maybe to travel. and that is there. And but before I go into that one, I actually wanted to also agree with you that the support for the tourism industry and for the food services has to go way beyond the time that we're in right now. The recovery period is not expected to be like this year. It is probably multiple years, and we do need to have a multi-year strategy to support them. So I think that's not a short term, I think it's a long-term one. But I wanted to go back to the sense of when people are comfortable actually in going into a venue. And we had on Thursday yesterday, the Quebec government announced plans actually to move forward with a proof of immunization program that would actually allow vaccinated people to actually live more of a normal life. Those are the words of Premier Legault from Quebec. British Columbia's top health experts have also expressed an interest in that, and the Saskatchewan NDP party is also in favor of it. And so one of the questions has come forward, what is your policy to be on a mandatory or optional proof of vaccination?
No, it's a really great question. And it's a little bit troubling to me to try to understand why the Ford government hasn't moved forward yet. Certainly the science table here in Ontario has said, a certificate of some kind or a passport of some kind is something that, there might be some, it might be a little bit challenging. There might be some things that we have to iron out, but even more challenging is not having a system in place. And so we're very much supportive of having some kind of a certificate program in place. My understanding is that the structure has already been built for that kind of a system here in Ontario. The public service has kind of already put something together that we could implement, but for some reason our premier is not prepared to do that. And I don't understand why. I think it really is something that will help businesses and will help customers. If you want to put it that way, will help Ontarians to get back out there and feel confident in doing so. So the short answer is yes, we're absolutely supportive of that. Not really sure why we haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, it's always interesting for us from a business community too. We actually conducted a poll probably about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, on this topic as well. And I think we had this under 70% support from business people saying that they actually it would make their life a little bit easier at the same time. And if we can do anything that would instill some confidence in people to travel, to support the services that are there, to take advantage of the businesses that are open, I think the easier it is for everyone in moving forward, understanding that this is a complex issue and a very sensitive one too. I wanted to switch a little bit here, and I wanted to talk about the labor market. And I was recently part of a roundtable that had pretty much every Niagara Business Association part of it. It also included the 12 mayors that we have, the regional chair. It was organized by the Niagara region, and identifying really what are the biggest obstacles that we have in moving forward with our economy. And the majority of associations actually identified labor shortage as being one particular issue. And I think it was really interesting to hear. So prior to the pandemic, February of last year, we had probably in Niagara the lowest unemployment rate at the time, and Canada experienced the lowest unemployment rate. We were around 5.6, which we had always been slightly higher than the rest of Canada and the rest of Ontario, but we experienced the lowest one that we have. This is a challenge. And now we talked about some sectors that have been hardest hit, but we've also seen other sectors booming during that period of time. Finance has done well, construction has done well, some of the trades are there. And then we're looking at the demands for housing and other areas that are there. We need more access to more people. This is what we're hearing from the business community. What can the provincial government do to support that, to overcome this labor shortage that is there? And specifically when we look at trades, when we look at our education sector that is there, do we have opportunities that we look at it with new eyes and saying we can move forward differently to assist the economies and the recovery of our economy better?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's really wise to identify that COVID has been devastating, but we can kind of renew our economies coming out of COVID. And it's something that we really need to do. We put together a plan. It's called the Green New Democratic Deal, because as we all, I think, realize, we still have that huge battle to win, which is the battle against climate change. And we need to do everything we can to green the economy. And that brings with it huge opportunities for folks in all kinds of the trades, yes, but in finance as well, and in management as well, and in project management, and it really could bring an amazing boom to our economy, and that's something that we've planned for. So you're very accurate in identifying that in order to undertake these kinds of changes, and in order to grab hold of the greening of the economy as it's a fantastic opportunity for job creation, we need to put in place some of the building blocks. So things like making sure the trades are more visible in the choices that young people have before them when they think about what they want to do career-wise. We used to do that a lot better. We certainly don't do it as well as we should, and we need to. I think and I want to say I'm very grateful to the Chamber of Commerce, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, for identifying the need to help with women transferring into apprenticeship programs, right? I mean, so this idea that folks who maybe are not traditionally seen as or perceived as folks who would be going into the trades has to change. So that's Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. That's women, and we need to make those trades welcoming for those folks, but also show those folks what a great living you can make in the trades, and that is so true. It's true now. It's been true for a long time. And I think it's certainly going to be true into the future, especially if we're able to do things like what we're talking about in terms of massive retrofits, for example, changing standards. And some folks might not appreciate this so much, but changing building code standards to create, buildings that don't emit greenhouse gases, to bring solar panels and electric charging stations throughout not only highways or on roadways, but in homes and in buildings. And so there's a great amount of work that can be done there. There's a great amount of opportunity, but it's really important that we open up people's eyes, and young people particularly, give them the opportunity to choose the trades, and then make sure that the infrastructure is there in the educational institutions and the support for businesses to help with the apprenticeship process. All of those things need to happen. And I'm happy to say one of your own MPPs here in the region, Wayne Gates, is a critic for us for the trades. And it's going to take conversations like the one we're having now in a much bigger way, or the one you described having had, and also with the trades themselves, with the educational institutions, but not just at the college level, at the grade school level and high school level. It seems to me that there was once a time when, new immigrants came and they literally physically built our communities and our cities and our towns. And then they wanted better for their kids. They wanted doctors and lawyers and teachers and professors and all those things, which are great. Accountants and professionals, that's all of those things are great. But we need to get back to recognizing that we need people to build, and we need people to transform our economy. And I think we can achieve that and do that with a concerted effort to make these things happen.
I agree with you. And I think there is a tremendous effort that is taking place right now in attracting more women into trades and repositioning trades at a younger age already there. So we're seeing the groundwork is there with a lot of more opportunity moving forward. But you touched on one thing, and I think it's linked to our conversation that we have right now about the labor shortage that we have. And that is actually, and I'm going to bring in affordable and accessible childcare, because COVID-19 crisis has really has had a disproportionate economic impact on women. And it has also actually at the same time, and this is probably a good move that has happened out of it, is that it has repositioned childcare as not only being a social issue, but also an economic issue. And we look at a neighboring province like Quebec that has more accessible and more affordable childcare. And we look at the women's participation in the labor force, and it is higher. So we've had the federal government moving forward with their budget 2021, actually, and regulating care basically to cost less than or around $10 a day, childcare for that matter. What is your party's position on the need for longer-term system-wide reforms when it comes to childcare and specifically the accessibility and affordability, something that is top of mind with many, more than it ever has been in beforehand?
Absolutely, and I'm thrilled that the federal government has made good on something that they announced 30 years ago. But I'm happy. I'm okay. My son's 28. I never was able to take advantage of it, but I'm glad that it's happening. And I can tell you, if I was in the premier's chair right now, we would have already had a deal with the federal government. I think it's shocking that the government doesn't seem to understand the economics of childcare, if you want to put it that way. I could share with folks that in previous NDP platforms, we have promised $10 a day childcare. We know what's been happening in Quebec for a very long time now. Actually, Quebec has had a phenomenal childcare program, and so there's a couple of pieces to it, right? There's making that deal with the federal government, making the financial commitments locally. There's also an acknowledgement, not dissimilar from the trades conversation, that we need to have early childcare educators that are there, that are trained. It's not babysitting. It's childcare, and there's also evidence, and I'm sure you know this, that early learning and early childcare really does set a strong foundation for success for kids to become professionals, to become successful. It's extremely important on so many fronts. The childcare needs to be high quality. It needs to be properly regulated. Parents, women, moms, and dads need to feel confident in the quality of the care, because we've also heard about tragic situations that have occurred in our history here in our province, where the oversight wasn't there and where the quality wasn't there, and we should never have families stuck between a rock and a hard place where the childcare is so expensive, it's almost like another mortgage payment, and so they have to cobble together some kind of other solution that's not something that they necessarily have a lot of confidence in. We should never shortchange our kids or our families in that regard. So, I mean, I just know that now is absolutely the opportunity to make that happen. And certainly, if Mr. Ford's not prepared to put a deal together and not prepared to help stimulate our economy by bringing more women into the workplace and helping them with childcare, then I certainly will. I understand completely. I used to be the critic for childcare and children when I was first elected as an MPP, and so I have a lot of passion for that.
It's really good to hear. And I think it's also really nice to hear, because what we've heard from the community, from business owners and others, is that the support is not just with women and not just with parents. It is universally there to saying we do need to move forward on this issue. And so it's critical to see. With the spending that has been taking place during the pandemic, and we hear about the childcare, this is a federal issue, but also on a local level, we're looking at the investments that are there. Business people also like to balance the books. They look at the budgets that are there and sometimes naturally have concerns about the increasing and growing debt that exists in Ontario. And it's not just one particular government, it's something that has been continuously growing over the last 25 years. What is your answer to public debt problem? What do you see your government and how are you planning to deal with it? Because that's the other side of what businesses are asking too.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that there's some concern out there. And I think there's a number of things that we have to put into perspective. One is the conversation we were just having about women coming into the workforce about ensuring that our economy gets back up on its feet and running at full tilt as soon as possible. And so again, that means some short-term spending to create the long-term payoff or payback. And I think that's just where I think we all need to kind of acknowledge that and not put unrealistic expectations on the supports that we need to provide for families that are still struggling, for businesses that are still struggling, our education system, which is, again, I really do believe our education system is a key to, to our economic success, particularly global competition as it is. We know we have to have highly educated folks, highly educated young people to help continue to drive our economy forward and create opportunity in our province. And so those kinds of investments need to be there. And I believe that yes, we have to be thoughtful about the return on those investments and the the longer term cost with deficits and with carrying a heavy debt. Certainly, the last time I reviewed where things were, definitely before COVID, there were certainly some higher interest kind of vehicles that were coming to an end. Lower interest rates were going to be helping with some of that on a cost from cost perspective of financing or covering those debts. But at the end of the day, it's really going to be, I think, a combination of acknowledging the investments that need to happen to support families, to support our healthcare system and particularly our education system and our businesses, because that kind of investment will bring returns, significant returns in the medium term and the long term.
When we talk about one of the investments, I think it's good to talk about public transportation as an infrastructure investment that we have. And Niagara is not it's not unique when compared to many other areas in Ontario, where transit and transportation remains kind of a shortcoming. And it's partially based because our population isn't as high, the costs are high in putting it in place. The way we are spread out, the way we are set up overall. What investments would you like to make, or do you think are critical for Niagara's local public transit to move Niagara forward, to make us more connected to Hamilton, to other areas? The GO Train has been an initiative that has been supported by all 12 municipalities and the regional government. So what's your vision when it comes to public transportation?
It's really important to identify transportation as being one of the keys to tying communities together and creating that opportunity, I think, for business and for people. We have, I'll never forget being on the campaign trail with Wayne Gates, making the announcement around all two-way, all-day GO service. We know that many communities have identified that as an issue. We know that here it's an issue. We are absolutely in support of that. We can solve the problems that exist in terms of where the infrastructure is going to be best suitable for the community. And so that's the connections, if you will, down the QEW, figuratively speaking. But there's also the interregional stuff that I think we really need to focus on. One of the things that we have had as a commitment for some time now is acknowledging that municipalities can't go it alone when it comes to transit systems. We used to have a much better sharing of costs with our transit systems provincially. It used to be the case that 50% of the operating costs of transit systems was, this is post-fare box, so after the fares, was shared 50% by the province, 50% by the municipality. We've made that commitment to bring that back because what that does is it helps municipalities expand their transit systems, helps municipalities make their transit systems more responsive. So adding stops, adding hours, adding routes, those kinds of things. particularly in a region like this, helping those links to be created and meet the needs of the population as well as the business community. So it's absolutely something that's on my radar, both the longer travel piece between Hamilton, Niagara, Hamilton, Toronto, etc. But definitely municipalities need help from the provincial government. The other thing that we're looking at is the electrification of the system. So our Green New Democratic deal, again, something I can help, we can provide to the chamber if you like, is really heavy on working to get municipal transit systems electrified as soon as we possibly can. So not only electrifying the GO system with Metrolinx and others, but absolutely getting municipalities the resources necessary to electrify their fleets as well. So we have been thinking a lot about transit, and we have some pretty exciting plans.
We've often seen the opportunities is that over the last 25 years, a lot of services have been downloaded from the province to the municipalities. Municipalities really not being able to actually handle it, not having the resources and the finances to do it. So their infrastructure is lagging behind. We have seen over the years some of the services moving back up. And we always actually believe that there's a great opportunity for us to move forward and to review the services that are there and really identifying where they should be at the municipal level or at the provincial level. And I think that it would make sense because in the end, it's a service for every citizen and resident that we're providing. And to many residents, it does not matter if it is at a federal level, at a provincial level, or at a municipal level. And especially in this case, if it's at a provincial or at a municipal one, they want the best service at the best price that is there. And I think there's an opportunity there too.
You're right. I mean, the capacity at the municipal level financially to undertake these kinds of initiatives is just not there.
It's not there.
No, it's not there. You have to have a partner in the province for sure.
Yeah, and it's very hard, especially when we take a look at communities ours, where you have a two-tier system, you have 12 municipalities, and you have municipalities all at quite a smaller size to a mid-size. And so the challenges are significant where there shouldn't be any challenges. But talking about one other area of it, and it's looking actually at mental health, because mental health has also been something that employers have continuously identified as being one of the biggest challenges. We feel it right now, we know it right now, where research indicates how many people during the pandemic have the mental health issues have increased. That is there. Now we're seeing continuous changes to it. Yes, you're back at work. Yes, you're in lockdown. We're moving forward here. All of those challenges, uncertainty about people's own job, their own security that they have, changes that are being made to all positions that are being redefined. And it really makes apparent on how much more we need to understand about mental health and we need to support mental health. What provincial policies do you think could be better to maintain the mental health of Ontarians, particularly when it comes to workplaces? How can we be better there?
Well, first of all, I want to say how happy I am to hear that you're thinking about these things and that the employer community is worried and is. I mean, I'm not happy to hear that you're worried. Don't. That's not really what I meant to say. But I'm happy to hear that you have this on your radar. I guess that's the best way to say it, because I think it's going to take some concerted effort to continue to destigmatize what mental health challenges mean and who it is. Pretty much anybody and everybody that can get into a situation where their mental health is suffering. So that employers are identifying this within their workforce is amazing, and thank you for that. And I think it's a couple of things as well. We need to continue to do some of that work around destigmatization. I still believe that continues to be an issue. So we need to do that in partnership, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's through public service kinds of announcements. But we also need to invest in the public or in the mental health systems. A couple of years back, several years ago now, there was a committee that was struck, an all-party committee, so nonpartisan, to do some a review of the situation of the mental health services and what was available across the province. And so a number of MPPs took participation in that. A number of experts from various communities got engaged. And what was supposed to be a one-year kind of project to put together a sense of what's going on out there in terms of mental health services ended up being 2 years, because there's really no mental health system in Ontario. And it's a terrible thing to acknowledge, but it is absolutely true. There is no system. And so it does really require a commitment around a couple of things. I mean, the services are fragmented. Depending on where you live, you may or may not have access to service. Right now we have, I don't really know where it is right now. It's probably much worse, but before the pandemic hit, there was literally an 18-month waiting period for youth mental health services. Now, that is really a serious problem, because when young people are not able to have their mental health issues addressed, they become more and more serious very quickly. And it really does interfere with their capacity to have a successful life. I mean, you'll have higher dropout rates. You'll have suicide rates. And I know that Wayne and Jenny Stevens from St. Catharines and Jeff Birch have all raised in the legislature, the tragic suicides or people who have died by suicide in this region because the services just weren't available and weren't there. We need to fix that. We need to make sure that not only young people, but adults are able to access mental health services when they need them. And we also, a similar situation, is occurring with addiction, and they go hand in hand. Mental health and addiction goes hand in hand. If people have trauma, if they're not able to have their trauma addressed, if they're not able to work through their mental health challenges, they self-medicate, and that is something that's happening quite a bit more now with the pressure that is on people. Of course, as I mentioned off the top, I was with Port Cares earlier today, and the executive director there was telling me that she literally is watching as people die by suicide on the property. Or not die by suicide, rather, sorry, die by opioid overdoses, literally on their property, which is so traumatizing, not only for themselves, but we're losing precious lives. It's traumatizing for families, for communities. So I'm a little troubled by why we have this cap on treatment programs or on treatment centers, or what the government calls them, addictions, consumption and treatment facilities. I don't know why there's a cap on those facilities. I think if a community is ready to step up and try to provide some support and some safety around opioid addictions, I think that needs to happen. It saves lives, and it gives people that chance to actually get better. I mean, you can't get better if you've overdosed. And the idea that we are now in the situation with fentanyl, and literally, again, I'm going to use the example of Port Cares, the executive director of that service, that hub of community services, says she literally has to be online and gets regular updates as to what color of fentanyl is carrying the poison that's killing people on any given day. I mean, really, is this what we should be? Is this where we should be? Absolutely not. So there needs to be investment, and I know it's another financial pressure for the government, but people deserve the supports that they need, and I think that if we work in partnership with the business community, with the medical side of things, and try to support people's mental health needs, then we will have a healthier economy as well, and we'll see more opportunity and less heartache and devastation. It's really, really terrible where we are right now, and we need to do better for folks.
Yeah, I think we need to do better too. And time is of the essence here too. And by talking about time, I'm getting the cue here that I think we have a minute left overall. And so I wanted to thank you for being with us today. Am I assuming, I think I'm right in saying that the NDP is celebrating the 60th anniversary this week overall too. So that is, I think, a milestone and probably also time to reflect and seeing how to move forward. So congratulations on that.
Thanks. No, I appreciate that. I'm excited. I mean, we've made official opposition in the last election, which is great. Our party is very strong, very reflective of our communities. We have a lot of participation from young people, from people of every walk of life. We have some business folks. In fact, one of our candidates for the next election is the former president of the Black Chamber of Commerce, Andrea Barrett, who's running in Scarborough, or rather in Brampton South for us. And so we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey that our party has been on for 60 years, but we're really proud of what we've been able to offer in terms of a vision for the future, and we just hope that we get the chance to realize that vision with Ontario.
And as a chamber, let me say thank you for actually being open to listen to the concerns of the business community, to listen to the concerns of Nagans that are there, and to always actually invite us to come to the table too. We really appreciate that. It is being recognized region-wide that you're there, that you're listening, and that you are responding to the needs that are there. To all of our viewers and participants, thank you for giving us on this beautiful sunny afternoon, on a Friday afternoon, an hour of your time actually to join us for this chat. This webinar is also available on our site and on our YouTube channel. And we have spoken to, and Andrea has mentioned a couple of resources which we will share in a follow-up email with you directly. And on that note, Niagara is open to have for all of you who are from outside of Niagara. We'd love to host you. We'd love you to come and visit Niagara. I'm really seeing that all the workplaces are committed to your safety and your well-being, and that is in place. So come join us at any time. And overall, I wish you a wonderful summer weekend. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.